Deep beneath the Sahara's shifting dunes, satellites detected something that should not exist.
The cartographer stared at the anomaly for the third night in a row, unable to explain the perfect right angles. No natural formation on Earth forms a square buried 40 meters beneath solid rock. If ancient mysteries like this pull you in, subscribe now, Aflit, because what she found next changed everything. Within a week, a small expedition was quietly assembled and flown into the heart of the desert. Before we go further, hit subscribe now, because what this team found next would rewrite history.
The field engineer unloaded the last crate of equipment as the sun dropped behind the dunes.
Their guide had grown up among these dunes and knew of a place the old stories warned never to dig.
He called it simply the Sleeping City, a name passed down through 6 generations of his family.
At dawn, the team began ground-penetrating radar scans across 2 kilometers of open sand. The radar returns showed walls, corridors, and a structure larger than anything in the historical record.
The cartographer's hands trembled as she realized the layout matched no known ancient culture.
By midday, unmarked black vehicles appeared on the ridge overlooking their camp. The African-American field engineer tightened his grip on the radio, uneasy about the sudden company.
The rivals team had clearly been tracking the same satellite data for weeks.
By nightfall, both camps pretended not to notice each other across the darkening dunes. At first light, the team broke ground at the coordinates the radar had marked as an entrance. 6 meters down, their shovels struck something that was unmistakably carved stone.
By afternoon, they had cleared enough sand to reveal a sealed stone doorway.
No hinges, no seams, pulley. The door seemed to have been grown from the rock itself.
The middle-aged South Asian female cartographer noticed a small circular indentation at the door's center, worn smooth by time.
As the wind shifted, dark clouds began gathering on the horizon for the first time in months.
The field engineer warned they had perhaps 6 hours before the storm reached camp.
Racing the weather, the cartographer pressed her palm against the ancient circular mark.
For a long moment, nothing happened, and the wind howled louder across the darkening dunes. Then a low, grinding sound rose from deep within the rock, ancient and unmistakably mechanical.
The rivals' convoy on the ridge fell silent, watching through binoculars as the door began to move.
Sand poured from the widening gap, like water finding a long-forgotten drain.
With the storm now minutes away, the field engineer made the call. They were going in.
The stairwell swallowed their headlamp beams as the last grains of sand sealed the entrance above them.
The air grew cooler with each step, carrying a mineral scent none of them could place. 20 meters down, the staircase opened into a chamber vast enough to swallow their lights whole. The East Asian field engineer's light found the first mural, and the room fell completely silent. Waves of stone floodwater rose across the wall, swallowing tiny carved figures fleeing upward. Beneath the flood, another row of figures descended calmly into open doorways in the earth. This was not a city buried by disaster, Fount. It was a city built to escape one. The Caucasian male guide traced a symbol at the mural's edge, recognizing it instantly from childhood stories. His grandmother had called it the mark of those who went down, and did not return.
The engravings did not resemble any script from Egypt, Nubia, or the ancient trade kingdoms. The guide knelt beside the stone, recognizing symbols from his grandmother's forgotten stories. Deeper murals showed the builders charting the stars, as if timing something precisely.
The engineer noted the carvings matched constellations, but positioned as they'd appear thousands of years ago.
A distant beam of light swept across the chamber's far wall, and every head turned at once. Through the darkness, unfamiliar footsteps echoed, careful and deliberate, closing the distance.
The rivals stepped into the light first, hands raised, sunglasses replaced by a headlamp of their own.
Neither team spoke for a long moment, each judging whether the other was friend or threat.
The cartographer finally lowered her light, deciding curiosity outweighed caution for now.
The rival admitted their organization had tracked this exact location for nearly 3 years. Both teams agreed, uneasily, that going forward together was safer than working alone.
Past the flood mural, the corridor narrowed again, sloping steadily downward into darker stone.
The murals here changed entirely, replaced by a single repeating symbol carved hundreds of times.
One repetition after another, the symbols seemed to pulse faintly under the beam of their lights.
The Asian female guide stopped walking, insisting the corridor ahead matched no story she had ever been told. The rival checked a handheld device, confirming they were now off any known mapped record.
Ahead, the corridor opened into darkness, so complete, and their lights seemed to vanish into it.
The Latinx female field engineer tossed a small light stick forward, watching it fall for several long seconds.
They had reached the edge of a chamber, deeper than anything the radar scans had shown. At the chamber's center, something metallic caught the light, smooth and untouched by time. A narrow, carved stairway spiraled down along the chamber wall toward the object below.
The cartographer led the descent, each step echoing louder in the growing silence. Halfway down, a low hum reached them, faint but unmistakably rhythmic in its pattern. The East Asian male engineer's compass began spinning uselessly the closer they came to the chamber floor. Radios crackled with static, and every screen in the group flickered at once.
At the base of the stairs, the metallic object rested in a shallow, carved basin.
Up close, its surface bore no seams, no markings, nothing to explain how it was made.
The Asian female rivals stared at it with an intensity that suggested this wasn't their first encounter. Pressed for answers, the rival admitted their organization had found similar objects at 2 other sites. Every site, the rival said, had been sealed shortly after discovery of Panya, and never spoken of publicly.
A side passage nearby revealed a row of sealed alcoves carved into the chamber wall. Each alcove bore the same circular mark that had opened the entrance far above them. The guide's unease deepened, recalling the second half of a story he'd never fully understood.
His grandmother had called them the waiting ones, though she never explained what that meant.
The diverse team debated opening one alcove, torn between scientific urgency and a growing sense of caution.
The cartographer made the final call, reasoning that answers mattered more than fear.
The seal gave way with a soft hiss, releasing air that had been trapped for millennia.
Inside, the alcove was empty, but the dust on its floor had clearly been disturbed recently. Someone, or something, had been here long after the city was supposedly abandoned.
The rival's expression shifted from curiosity to something closer to alarm.
A distant tremor rolled through the chamber, dust falling steadily from the ceiling above. Somewhere far above, the storm was still raging, and the structure seemed to feel it.
The field engineer voiced what everyone feared. The sandstorm may have triggered something below.
The hum from the metallic object grew slightly louder, as if responding to the tremor above. The rival finally admitted their organization believed the object was some kind of dormant mechanism.
No one could say what it was meant to do, only that it had never been active before.
The Asian female cartographer and the African-American male rival exchanged a look, both realizing they needed each other now. Together they began mapping an alternate route, unwilling to risk the sealed stairway above. A narrow side corridor branched away from the main chamber, sloping gently upward.
The guide recognized faint air movement in the passage, a sign it led somewhere outside.
Before leaving, the elderly Caucasian female cartographer paused at the final mural, studying it one last time.
The mural's final panel showed the circular mark opening not once, but on a repeating cycle.
It wasn't a warning against opening the door, but it was a record of it happening before.
The builders hadn't just sealed the city once, they had expected it to be reopened. The tremors above grew steadier, and the group agreed it was time to move. They followed the sloping passage upward, leaving the humming chamber behind them in the dark. The air grew warmer with every step, a welcome sign they were nearing the surface. A faint gray light appeared ahead, the first sign of the world they had left behind. The passage opened into a narrow crevice, sand still swirling faintly from the weakening storm.
Above them, the storm was finally breaking, dawn light bleeding through the retreating clouds. One by one, the team climbed free of the crevice into the cool morning air.
The original camp came into view, tents battered but intact after the night's storm.
The rivals' convoy waited nearby, engines idling, their presence no longer feeling like a threat. For a moment, both teams simply stood in silence, letting the weight of the night settle.
The cartographer finally spoke, insisting the discovery needed careful study before anything else.
She radioed her research network, describing the chamber but withholding the object's exact location. The coordinates, she insisted, would be marked as restricted pending further verification.
The rival listened without objection, offering only a quiet nod of agreement.
Before departing, the rival left a single warning. Leave the site undisturbed, for now.
The black convoy pulled away across the dunes, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The guide remained near the resealed crevice, murmuring words passed down through generations. It was, he explained, a way of asking the sleeping city for forgiveness.
By midday, the team began the slow work of packing away their equipment and findings.
The African-American female field engineer took one last look at the dune before turning back toward the jeep.
Within days, drifting sand had already begun reclaiming the excavation site completely.
By the following week, no trace remained that anyone had ever been there at all. The team scattered back to their normal lives, bound by an unspoken agreement to stay silent.
But the cartographer found she couldn't stop thinking about the hum beneath the sand.
Months later, a new satellite pass flagged an anomaly she recognized immediately.
The same geometric shadow had reappeared, this time nearly 400 kilometers away.
She sat in the dark for a long time, the office silent except for the hum of machines.
Somewhere in her memory, she swore she could still hear the low hum from that chamber.
The desert, she realized, had not finished revealing what it had been hiding. She printed the new coordinates and pinned them beside the first, a pattern beginning to form.
A third anomaly appeared within the month, forming a rough line across the desert map. The pattern resembled the star chart carvings from deep within the chamber they had found.
The guide, too, sent word Bo. The elders in his village were speaking of the pattern in whispers.
Even the rivals' organization had gone unusually quiet. No new statements, no new movement.
He agreed without hesitation, admitting he had never stopped thinking about that chamber either.
She reached out quietly to the field engineer, the only person who would believe her.
The silence, the cartographer suspected, meant they were watching the same pattern unfold. She began quietly assembling a small team, choosing only those who had been there before. This time, she promised herself, they would be ready for whatever the hum truly meant.
The new coordinates pointed toward a remote stretch of dunes few expeditions had ever reached. Local rumors spoke of strange lights beneath the sand, seen only during the driest months.
The African-American female field engineer began preparing equipment, this time with tools built to withstand the hum's interference.
He wanted the stories and the truth behind them to survive in someone younger.
Within weeks, the new expedition was quietly assembled, smaller and far more cautious than before.
The Hispanic female cartographer studied the satellite feed one final time before departure, hands steady now. This time, she wasn't chasing an accident of discovery, a break. She was answering a call.
The convoy set out at dawn, dust trailing behind them across the empty dunes. Somewhere ahead, beneath the sand, something had been waiting far longer than anyone could imagine. By midday, the convoy reached the edge of the marked coordinates, dunes stretching in every direction. The Hispanic male engineer's shielded equipment picked up the same low hum before they had even begun digging. It was fainter than before, but unmistakably the same signature they had recorded months earlier.
The Middle Eastern guide's sun knelt at the dune's edge, tracing a faint circular depression in the sand.
It matched the mark from the sealed door precisely, as if placed there deliberately to be found.
The African-American female cartographer knelt beside it, remembering the last time her hand had touched a mark in this jungle. This time, she wasn't rushing against a storm the plighted. She had chosen this moment deliberately.
She pressed her palm against the mark, and once again, the ground began to answer.
Somewhere below, the hum grew steadily louder, as if recognizing that it had been found again. The Sahara, it seemed, still had more to reveal. and Marcus Void, a young Hispanic man, would be there to find it.